What's up, Rhodes? Rock and roll. Another week. I feel like I just talked to you guys yesterday, but it was a week ago. Is time going by fast?
Yeah.
Are you ready for summer break to be over?
No.
Brody said no. We got Brody with me today. He's got a fishing page on YouTube, B2J Fishing, all one word. You can see this stud in a pair of sunglasses. Just released a crappie video. He's going to talk a little bit of crappies today because he did catch the crappies really good this week. So did Jack. So you're going to touch on some crappie fishing, how you caught them, what worked. We're going to talk a little bit of bass fishing. We're going to talk some ways that we caught our fish, some distinct ways we caught our fish. Last week we talked about rocks. Rock bite is still absolutely going on. I would say the rock bite still is probably your most consistent big fish bite. Talking bass here. Big fish bite seems to be the rocks. However, how did we catch them really good the other day at bass fishing? Deep weeds?
Yeah.
Casting way out in the middle of the lake?
Yeah.
Although you caught two nice ones right away on the roadbed, on the rocks. So it could be a timing thing, but what we saw in the last few days is that deeper weed line starting to set up. I would say our average size fish is slightly smaller than your rock bite, but we're catching a lot more out there. And that rock bite, at least the last few days, kind of turned off for us pretty quick during the day. That morning bite was decent, and then the rock bite, at least for me, was almost non-existent the rest of the day, the last few days, where it was very small windows of time. And then throughout the day, we caught them deeper on drop shots, Ned rigs, jig worms, Nikos, all that kind of stuff. We also threw these guys, jigs, Rattling AT jigs from All Terrain, Grassmaster jigs from All Terrain. Hot color, absolutely, for us this last week was the Okeechobee Craw. Okeechobee Craw is going to be your, I'll show you. It's going to be your green pumpkin, blue, a little bit of watermelon. It's got that green pumpkin head. I match it with a green pumpkin or Okeechobee Craw, pocket craw on the back end from Mr. Twister. So I can really match this thing up. Again, this is the Grassmaster. This is a 3/4 ounce. I was flipping this into some of the cover we had to get at. Depending on the cover, I'll either throw the Grassmaster, which has more of that bullet shape head. It punches right through it. It's heavier. Or I'll throw your Rattling AT jig, which is a little smaller profile, 3/8 ounce. I can swim it a little more effectively. I can do more with this. Grassmaster, punching, flipping, hit the bottom, couple shakes, reel up, do it again. AT jig, maybe fish around docks, through the lily pads a little differently, more sparse weeds, but kind of a 1-2 jig, skirted jig approach. Grassmaster, Rattling AT. Okeechobee Craw, say that 10 times fast, Okeechobee. Okeechobee Craw was the hot color by far the last few days. So we caught a lot of fish doing that. The rod we're using for that is I'm using a 7-foot to 7.6 or 7.10 heavy action rod for the Grassmaster. I'm using a 50 or 65 pound braid, sometimes tying a 20-pound fluorocarbon leader on there, depending on the condition. Powerful reel. I have my rods custom built at Thorn Brothers. Love them to death. And then for the Rattling AT, you could certainly fish a medium heavy action rod, 7-foot. You could certainly continue to fish that heavy, but that medium heavy 7-foot workhorse for that 3/8 ounce Rattling AT jig seems to work well. Downsize a hair on the pound test. I might even fish a 17-pound fluorocarbon straight. Really depends on the body of water, but that's the gist of how I'm fishing those two jigs. Do you want to talk crappies? Should we talk crappies before I move on to some other stuff?
Yeah.
So you caught a pile of crappies. How deep of water were we fishing? Remember?
Like 8 feet.
Yep.
Or that, like 8 to 12.
8 to 12 feet of water. What was down there? What kind of structure?
Like weeds
Weeds?
and
Like on the weed line?
Huh?
Yeah, fishing on the weed line on the edge. Fishing on the edge with for crappies. You could see them on the active target and on the sonar, right? You could see a ton of them. And then what were you using to catch those crappies?
a little jig and then some little plastics like that big.
Yep, he was using a Sassy Sting'em from Mr. Twister. It's a little minnow bait, just a little jobby. You're using a clear one. You guys are using a green one. It didn't matter, did it?
No.
And you were using a 1/32 ounce drop TG. It's a tungsten jig head from Clam. That paired with that little Sassy Sting'em, did it work?
Yeah.
Did you catch one every drop?
Yeah.
Was it fun?
Yeah.
And you filmed a video.
Yeah.
So if they go to B2J Fishing on YouTube, they can watch your video that you shot this week.
we didn't record the whole time. We only recorded me like catching 5 of them.
Yeah, but you caught like 50.
Yeah.
It was fun, huh? So the crappies are on the weed lines. They're pretty easy to spot. You can literally see them sometimes with the naked eye, but even more so with your electronics. You will not question if they're below you. It's almost comical. We laugh quite a bit. Like, look at the school of crappies underneath us. You drop down, you caught a fish.
Yeah.
Was it that easy?
Yeah.
You're that good. So Brody caught a ton of crappies. The crappie bite right now is fun. They're in their summer patterns. Like I said, weed lines, easy to spot. Great opportunity for the kiddos. You caught some nice bass throwing an all-terrain smallie smasher and a little 3-inch perch paddle tail, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you caught that on the rocks. Cast it out there, reel it in nice and slow. Did they hit hard?
Yeah.
Brody caught the first 2 bass of the day the other day, and some nice ones, throwing just a small swim bait. I caught a handful of bass on a largie smasher with a longer paddle tail, probably a 4 to 5 inch presentation. That worked well. And then when we went to the weed line, I did my damage on the bass. Once again, what we talked about last week, and if you see me on social media, I'm sorry, I'm a broken record. Ned Ringer, we crushed him on this. Caught a lot of fish on this. I'm using a Z-Man Ned lock. This one's all beat up, full of weeds. You can see it. Definitely caught a few fish. Ned Ringer, caught a lot of fish. And what we learned the last couple of days was boats in 8 to 12 feet, you were catching your crappies over the side of the boat. I'm slanging out towards the middle of the lake, pulling this bait back up, probably through 16 to 18 feet of water where the weeds are kind of getting sparse. I hit that 14, 13 foot mark, they thicken up. I'm getting those fish as I'm pulling it back up. That was the pattern that worked really well for us the last few days versus your traditional way of sitting on the weed line, deeper, throwing up to the weed line. We sat on the weed line so these boys could windmill those crappies, and I threw out at a 45-degree angle, and I pounded on the bass with this. And we're using 7 to 7.6 medium action spinning rods. This is a custom built rod from Thorn Brothers. I got a 3000 series Vanford on here. I got 15-pound Suffix 832 high vis braid with a 8 or 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. It's that easy. I did upsize the weight of this jig head. A lot of times I fish a 1/10. I did go up to a 1/8, even a 1/6. They have odd sizes, I believe, if I remember right. I just wanted to make contact with the bottom. The wind also picked up. We had some pretty strong winds the other day, 15, 20 mile an hour, but it allowed me to cast this out there with ease and keep contact with the bottom. That's the big thing with Ned rig fishing in general, is you want to make contact with the bottom. A lot of people are fishing that thing and it's way up here. And forward-facing sonar has shown me just how high in the water column our jigs and lures actually sit when you retrieve them back to the boat. Get a little heavier jig head on there, make contact with the bottom, away we go. We also caught a bunch of fish on a wacky rig. Is it wacky? On a wacky rig. You might see a theme with me: green pumpkin, chartreuse, wacky rig, green pumpkin, chartreuse, Ned head. Those work really well. A lot of times you can buy some brands that have them this color. I also will dip them or spray them or color them with a chartreuse tip to get that a desired color if I want. But those are some of the ways we caught our fish. We also caught fish on what, chatterbaits?
Yeah.
We caught them all kinds of ways this week. What was your most fun way to catch a fish this week?
Probably crappie fishing with the little jig.
Crappie fishing with the little jig. They were laughing and giggling. Jack did some flipping, caught a few fish with that. So it's that kind of time of year where there's all kinds of variables to be thrown at you. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It really depends on the body of water you're fishing and how you approach it. Clear water, river system, clean water, deep weed line, a lot of shallow rock, no rock, sand. All these things come into play on how you fish a body of water. So I'm just going to give you every week here Reader's Digest of what we found and what worked for us. Water temps are in the mid to upper 70s. They actually dropped back a bit. We wore sweatshirts the last few mornings. It was low 50s to start the day. Awkwardly cold. Water temps dropped on some bodies of water, surface temp upwards of 10 degrees in the last few days. I would say we're abnormally cool for some of these mid-July days to get up in the 50. It was 51 degrees when we went to the lake the other morning. 51 degrees in July. It was sweatshirt and sweatpants kind of weather in central Minnesota. I'm gonna warm up again next week. I'm gonna be in Florida next week. Not gonna do much fishing around here. I'm gonna be at ICAST. I'm gonna try to report back with some stuff next weekend on what we found at ICAST, some cool stuff. I'm going to do hopefully some videos throughout the week, so pay attention to social media. I'll be there with Blackfish Gear, Clam Outdoors, All Terrain. There'll be a ton of stuff on their social media pages, booming with what's new. You're not going to want to miss some of this. Please follow along. Super excited. And if any of you watching happen to be at ICAST, swing by one of those booths. I'll be there all day Wednesday, all day Thursday during show hours. Swing by, say hi, we'll chat fishing. Otherwise, until next week, you want to send them off?
Yep.
Go ahead, send them off. Say see you later.
See you later.
We'll catch you next time.
Catch you next time.